Press record. So welcome everybody. My name is Alison Watts. I'm here on behalf of the Southern Cross Postgraduate Association. Very pleased to be hosting this workshop on systematic searching for literature delivered by Megan Lee. Megan's from Bonn University. The workshop will go for 2 hours. I'll keep an eye on the chat box. I might not stay for the whole thing, just to let you know, Megan. I'll be popping in and out, I guess. I also wanted to say, yes, so the recording, so I've started recording, it'll be posted to the Southern Cross Postgraduate Association YouTube channel, and I'll post that link into the text box because that can be quite useful for students to just kind of go over any parts that they want to in their own time. Also next week, we've got Megan delivering again. Excuse me, that's my phone. Of course. Next Thursday, we've got Megan delivering again a fantastic workshop, Qualitative Research Methods. I'll pop the link to register for that in the chat box as well. That's next Thursday, the 23rd. And throughout April, Megan will be delivering a 4-part series of workshops on SBS for statistics. So keep an eye out on your student emails, and my phone keeps going off. Oh, well. Okay, over to you, Megan. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Alison. I'll give you a little bit of background on myself first. I was at Southern Cross University. I did my PhD there. I finished that last year in June. But I have been teaching for 5 years, I think, in research methods and statistics. And all of the things that I have workshops on now, I used throughout my PhD. And now I'm teaching to other students. I'm also working here at Bond. I am a psychology lecturer and statistics lecturer here. And these are my socials if you want to follow me, if you're interested in anything to do with nutrition and mental health. That's my actual research field. I'm doing lots of stuff in plant-based diet at the moment, and also a little bit on student feedback surveys and academics mental health, which is quite interesting and exciting, very relevant to most of us who are teaching. So today we are going to be discussing what a systematic search is and how can you apply it not only to, say, a formal literature review or systematic review or meta-analysis, but also to your everyday writing and reading of the literature. And this is something that I found really helpful because I did an umbrella review, which is a systematic review of systematic reviews in my PhD. And I kept thinking to myself, why hasn't anyone taught me this process in the past? I could have really applied this in my undergrad, in my honours. Anytime I'm looking for information in the literature across a broad topic, this system could have really, really helped me. So I encourage people to use this every time they do any form of literature searching. So today in our workshop, we will be discussing what a systematic literature review is, why it's beneficial to all types of research. I will then move through the process, the step-by-step process of conducting a systematic search, then how to use that to then write your literature review as well. How to use the information from the literature in your research papers. And then we will step through, after I've discussed that with you and shown you an example from my research, we will use the second half or maybe the last half an hour of the workshop to use your actual research keywords and your research topic to practice this system and see what you come up with. That way we can troubleshoot any questions or anything interesting that happens during your literature search. Keep in mind, I will give you all of my details at the end of the workshop again. If you do use this system in the future and you have questions, feel free to email me and I can answer any tricky ones that you have. So we kind of covered this already. Systematic search is the systematic identification of relevant research findings. Now, the difference between a systematic literature search and a normal literature review that we do is usually we just go willy-nilly into Google Scholar or into our databases and just look up keywords from our topics without any form of system advising that. And then we'll write up our literature review of the most recent papers on our topic. But doing it that way, sometimes you can miss some key papers, particularly historical papers that inform your topic. And I always suggest to my students, if you are looking at a brand new topic that you've never had experience with before, the best thing to do is to look for a current systematic literature review or meta-analysis on that topic, because it will already have done the hard work for you and have all of those papers in there. But a systematic search involves constructing a research question using some key criteria, which I will teach you, developing keywords for your search in a specific way, knowing what you want to include in your search and exclude from your search is a very important step that we will have a look at, and where the best places are to look for your literature and how to search those places effectively. As I said, it's normally used when conducting systematic reviews or meta-analysis, but I do use this process when conducting any form of literature search now. So, any questions before we move on to the process? Let's find out what sort of experience you have with systematic searching currently. So we know kind of where everyone's at. So Jacob, have you done systematic literature searching before?
Not really, no. I think generally my research skills come off the back end of having practical experience and then going and finding something that matches the thought process I've already got. So,
okay. Henriette?
Hello. I'm just an amateur, really. I guess I do my best with the knowledge that I have at this point in time, but I'm here for a reason, because I feel there is a lot that I could improve, and not just finding a needle in the haystack, but doing something systematically. If I could learn some hints and tips, I think that could make my life and many others considerably easier. I'm about to start my honours research project in psychology. So I'm very, very interested in what I'm going to learn today. Thank you.
Thank you, Henriette. Bev? You're on mute, Bev.
I'm not now. Very little structured systematic research. I think I'm muddled through on my bachelor in counselling.
That's good. That's good. Thank you. Thor?
I have some experience, and I've taken some time off of my research. I'm having to update my search, and I am here to get my mind back into the game. So so I do have some experience with it.
Thank you, Thor. Kelly?
I've been involved in projects where we've done systematic reviews, but I've never been responsible for doing them myself. So it's kind of newish, but I've never done it myself.
Great, thank you. Susan?
Just a little bit, but I'm always hungry to learn more from people who know what they're doing rather than fumbling around. My biggest challenge is to actually figure out what you're looking for. That's a trick.
Excellent. We will cover that today. Thank you. Nadine?
Yeah, I spend way too much time and get lost in it all and, you know, then get sidetracked. So, yes, I would love to know a good system to just reduce that time and stick to what's really I need to do.
Excellent. I hear that all the time. That is one of the most common things that people say, is that they do get lost in the weeds a little bit when they are trying to find out what's important, what to include. Would anyone else like to share where they are with their knowledge on systematic searching?
I'm happy to.
Yeah, go for it. Thank you, Carol. Oh,
So I'm about to develop a research question for a research project in my master's, which I think that throughout, I guess, the couple of years, I haven't really been able to use the system to my advantage. I feel like I just get on the surface. I'm not very good with working out how to refine my search. And I think I've lost out on some really good quality information because of that and not really knowing where to go. So this time I really do need to enhance my research skills and really get down and find information and get into the right systems to dig down and get that information. So even though I've been at it for a while, I still don't think I've perfected this or even got near to that. So I guess that's why I'm here today.
excellent. Excellent. Hubbo?
Vanessa, but this just gives you an example of how hopeless I am with computers, because I didn't change the name. I am lost with research, trying to navigate stuff and find things. So I am so looking forward to learning as much as I can. When I went to school, we didn't even have a computer. So this is just, thank you so much for doing this. I'm very grateful.
No problem. No problem. Anyone else would like to share where they are with their knowledge in systematic searching? If not, we can move on. These are all the very, very common things that I hear with researchers when they haven't got a system in place. So I'm glad to hear that we are all on the same page. All right, so the process. And we're going to go through this step by step today. So don't worry about taking it all in now and having to remember it. The process involves firstly developing your research question. Now, we do that by using a PICO or a different type of acronym depending on what field you are in. So I am in psychological research. So a lot of what I'm explaining today will be centered around the things that we do in psychology, but I will also, when I'm doing that, I will also divert and say, this is what is common in science, this is what's common in law, this is what's common in business, education. I do a little bit of education research as well, so I know that not everything revolves around the field of psychology, which is a common thing in our field. So developing a research question with what's called a PICO, and I'll get to that in a second. Identifying synonyms and related terms for your keywords. Because if we're just looking for our keywords, that's where we tend to miss some key papers that are either written in American English or using different words for your common keywords that you might not have thought of. Then we identify the relevant databases for your research, and we use always more than one type of database for that same reason, because one database doesn't have every paper included within it. Then we use truncation and Boolean operators, so ands and ors, to broaden or narrow our search depending on how many papers we get. Sometimes you'll run a search with your keywords and you'll get hundreds of thousands of papers, and that's when you know you need to narrow your search down. I'll teach you how to do that. Sometimes you'll get one or two papers and you know very well in the field there's more than that, so I'll teach you how to broaden that search out. Then we identify our inclusion and exclusion criteria that we want to include in our papers, making sure again that we're not missing anything important. And then we sort and store our literature. We look via title and abstract in the list of papers that we have received. And then we use a data extraction table to extract out the key elements from each of those papers before then writing into our report or our theses. So let's begin with step number 1, and please feel free to stop me at any stage if you have any questions. I tend to get on a roll a little bit and forget to ask. So, and we will do some activities later with your own research topics. So that will be a little bit more interactive than the first bit. So the PICO, and as I said, this is very psychology or health research way of doing things. Firstly, you need to know who your population is, or your patient, or your problem. Then we need to know what intervention we are looking at. So intervention is usually like your predictor. What variable is predicting the difference or the change in your outcome? I might just get everybody to mute if they can. That would be amazing, unless you have a question, of course. So then we're looking at the intervention. Then sometimes we have a comparator to that intervention. Sometimes we don't. So sometimes you will be searching your P, your I, and your O, and not your C. But in other research, we'll have a comparator to your intervention. And you'll see when we get to my example, my intervention is healthy diet, my comparator is unhealthy diet. And then your outcome is the variable that you are interested in seeing the outcome in. So for my research, it's always depression is my outcome. And we want to see whether or not diet, our intervention, makes a change in our outcome of depression. With qualitative research, I also do quite a bit of qualitative research. It turns into population or problem, interest and context, because obviously we don't have an intervention and an outcome. They're very quantitative words in our qualitative research. But if you are not in psychology and you're in a different area of research, there are other ways of developing your PICO and your research question. So the Eclipse model is usually used, has a focus on health policy. So expectation or client group, location, impact, professionals and service. Spider is usually focused on qualitative or mixed methods research. So sample, the phenomenon of interest, evaluation, design, research type. And SPICE, which is used for very specific interventions in particular settings. Now, of course, there can be other frameworks that you can use in law, education, etc. And you just use what suits your topic the best. So let's have a look at the example of a PICO and how to use that PICO to formulate your research question. And I've always been told that your research question is the most important part of any research or any literature searching topic, because if you are going out there and you've got some kind of idea of what you're searching for, but not really a full idea, then you tend to get lost in the weeds. Some of the comments that we had before, not really knowing what's relevant, finding papers that are interesting and then going down a rabbit hole because you find something else interesting in that paper and there's something else interesting in that paper and you're all over the place and you don't know what's relevant for your report. So this stops that. So I suggest when you have developed your PICO, your population intervention comparison and outcome, and you've developed your research question, that you write it on a post-it note. And I still do this every project that I have. Write your research question on a post-it note, stick it on your computer screen or on the wall somewhere near your computer. And every time you read a paper, go back to your research question and think, is this relevant to my research question? If you find a reference in another paper and you're like, wow, that's so cool and interesting, when you read the title, make sure that it relates back to your research question so we don't end up down these rabbit holes of literature searching over somewhere completely irrelevant to your research topic. in all these really cool papers that you found. So always going back to the research question. So for my current research and for the example that we will be using today, my population is plant-based diet followers, people who eat a plant-based diet. This is current research that I'm actually doing at the moment. I'm writing an umbrella review on this, which we started last week. So this is very, very relevant and brand new research. Intervention is high diet quality or healthy diet. The comparison is low diet quality or unhealthy diet. And the outcome is depression or depressive symptoms. And so taking the population intervention comparison outcome framework, my research question is, what is the association between high diet quality compared to low diet quality in plant-based dietary followers experiencing the symptoms of depression? And it's so important to have that research question very operationalized and always consistently around for those reasons that we discussed before. Any questions about developing the research question using your PICO? Okay. What we might do actually, before we move on, is I might get you for the next 5 minutes to have a go at writing a PICO or one of the other types of frameworks for your research question. Keeping in mind that you may not have a comparison, it might just be population intervention outcome, which is very, very common. So I'll give you 5 minutes and then we'll come back, develop your PICO, and then try and write your research question with the PICO framework. Any questions before we start the 5 minutes?
Would you please put the spider one up again? So I'll write that down so I can have it. Thanks.
No worries. Let me know when you're done and I'll flick back.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Good job.
Megan, would you be kind enough to go back one slide as well? I didn't manage to write down the last bit. Thank you kindly. Appreciate it.
Megan, what are some of the tips around looking at a comparison? Because I know what an intervention is, but I'm not sure what to compare it to.
Okay. Do you want to tell me what your what your PIO is? And we'll see if you even need a comparison.
So I'm looking at the education sector.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at my intervention is the AI that we've got. And then the outcome that I'm looking at is the impact of that, I guess, on employment, job opportunities.
Okay, this is very, very good. I'm just writing this down. And your population is in teachers, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so you probably don't have a comparator, but yes, well, the comparator is compared to non-AI maybe. So what are when you're thinking about, so it's artificial intelligence, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Are you talking about the ChatGPT stuff?
I'm talking about that, yes, and the way that one would develop education materials to teach to students, because that's going to change.
Yeah.
And the ChatGPT is just one of them.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
then looking at that, my outcome is, will it impact a future job opportunities? You know, will it reduce employment, etc.? So the outcome of the comparison was, I guess, like you said, not having it.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, that's good. And in this case, I wouldn't be using my comparator in my search terms because it would just confuse the the search terms and it will turn up everything that's not AI. So yeah, this is a very good example of when the comparator is not necessary. And sometimes the comparator is just lack of the intervention or not the intervention. It's more common to see the search terms done with just the P, the I, and the O. Yeah. What is also interesting is that your outcome is impact on employment and job opportunities. So this is where we need to really become very aware of exactly what we want. Do you want to know about both? Because that's kind of a double-barreled outcome. It's okay if it is, because we can make two outcomes. But if you're writing like a formal literature review or a formal systematic review, that would be considered two different papers in some ways, maybe, depending. But I would throw both of those into the same outcome line. Yeah. And we will do that later. Does anyone else want to share? Yes.
Megan, I've been playing around with my idea for a while. It's even scribbled on that. But doing the PICO, the population is beach nesting birds.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, I'll tell you what the desired outcome is, which is the wrong way to look at it, is we would love to have the ability with monitoring beach nesting birds that all the data to do with disturbance, whether it's natural or human, that it's all recorded. And the problem at the moment is there's some ad hoc training given to people, but it doesn't produce super objective data for the Save Our Species people. And they just said to me, if we had one wish, because I said, if I could do research and you had your one wish, what would it be? And they said, objective data recorded by all people, but we've got volunteer people, we've got ecologists, and it's just a mix mash. And obviously, if we don't have all the correct data that we require, we can't come up with the right strategies. So at the moment, I've said populations, beach nesting birds, intervention is objective monitoring data. Comparison would be subjective monitoring data, maybe. Yeah. Outcome is disturbance levels.
Yeah, perfect. Exactly.
Is that it?
Sounds good. Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Good job.
Thank you.
Megan, I'm a little bit confused with mine.
Okay.
So the population I'm looking at is young people living in therapeutic residential care. And I'm a bit unsure what's the intervention, what's the outcome.
Okay, so what do you want to know?
So I want to understand how they participate in making decisions about engaging with their families. And I'm not sure whether that's two outcomes or one of it is is the intervention and one's the outcome. But I'm not sure which is which.
So young people in residential care and their decisions to contact their families, or their decisions to...
Well, it's more how if they're participating in the decision making about that, whether they engage with their families. So, you know, it could be that often they don't have a say. They're not participating in the even conversation about it, I guess, is what we're hearing. So it's like, the participation is important, but family is also important.
Yeah. Good. So when you're looking at your research and what you're trying to find out from the research, you are really looking at what papers there are out there that look at young people in residential care and their participation in decision making with their family. Is there papers out there on that? Or is this your gap in the literature?
It's probably more the gap. There's papers about participation and there's a small number of papers about family, but there's not much about, I think there's maybe one paper.
Yeah, so this is where it gets a little bit confusing, where we feel like our research question for our actual project or our thesis is the research question for the literature review itself. So when you're doing the literature review to begin with, to advise your topic, your research question for the literature review is going to be a little different to the research question that you finish with when you found the gap in the literature that you want to fill. Yeah. So that's where it can get confusing, because we've got this great idea and this is wonderful research and very, very important. But to me, it sounds like this is your actual your proper research question. And then you would go to the literature and you would be looking at, well, what is there about this one paper? Okay, so what other things do we need to know in the literature to support the argument that we're making that this is important research? Yeah. Good.
So would that mean there might be a couple of different reviews potentially?
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. How's everyone else going?
Hi, it's Nadine here.
Hi.
I haven't quite formed my question, but I was thinking around something like, does the new ADHD guidelines increase access to diagnosis and treatment? So I wasn't sure if this would be a population one, because
No, it's not.
No,
there is no population. So it's more along the lines of looking at the guidelines. So would this be like a content analysis type research project where you're looking qualitatively at the guidelines and trying to find out whether or not they do support access and treatment?
Well, that's what I'm not sure about. So I'm very interested in neurodiversity, ADHD, and I know that these guidelines have been released that highlight a lot of vulnerable groups, but you certainly can't go down that path for thesis. So so I'm thinking maybe just to look at the new guidelines and whether, doctors know about them, or, of course they do, but how much they look at the different groups, the vulnerability of them, and whether just having, I was thinking maybe, GPs, psychologists was probably who I would be targeting my questions towards, but I'm interested in your view around that. So
it would be more along the lines of this problem, interest, context, PICO, rather than your population intervention comparison outcome. So your problem is like the ADHD guidelines, or that's more the context really. The problem is, do they fully support access and treatment? And I think there would be some good stuff in the literature on that. So you would develop it that way. Okay. Yes, Bev.
I work with the homeless people in Ballina, so my question is, how many people who are homeless have been traumatized as children?
Oh, that's a good one. So your population is homeless people?
Yes.
Population. Intervention is trauma.
Yes.
And then I think its context is it's more childhood trauma, isn't it?
Yes.
That's an interesting one too. And that lends more to a qualitative research question as well, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So again, going back to this one here, this problem, interest, context. So childhood trauma in homeless populations. And are you looking at just what the prevalence of that is, or what their experiences of that are?
Well, I think there's two-way street there, because I'd be interested in both. Because I see the homeless every day, every week, and I wonder, yes, there may be people there, but I'd like to hear their experiences too.
Yeah, so that's really lending to a mixed methods research project, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's see how many have experienced that, and then let's talk to them and see what their experiences were. Yeah, really good. But going into the literature now and seeing how many papers there might be out there that already address childhood trauma and homelessness. And you're not really looking at any outcome or like how does childhood trauma impact something else in the homeless, or it's more along the lines of, does the childhood trauma create the homelessness? There are so many things going on there as well. Like, what are the other covariates? Like the childhood trauma impacts drug use, childhood trauma impacts like not being safe in the home. There's all these other co-varying. That's a very cool question, Bev.
It's a very colourful pot too.
There's lots of things happening. That's good.
Yeah.
Has anyone successfully written a research question from their PICO and would like to share that?
Megan, could I share? Sorry, I can't figure out how to turn my video on. My
That's
name's
okay.
Bryony. I'm not doing a thesis and I'm not developing a research question at the moment, but something came up in a project at work that I was thinking about the other day, and I thought this would be a great example to write a PICO for, just because we're not aware of any evidence that is in existence at the moment. So we're looking at long-term follow-up care for post-transplant survivors. And so the PICO that I wrote was, what is the impact of using virtual care appointments compared to face-to-face appointments for the long-term follow-up of post-transplant survivors on the number of fail to attends?
Great. Good. It seems like there's 4 things there. Or is it just the 3? No, there is 4.
So population is the post-transplant survivors.
Yep.
Intervention is using virtual care appointments in place of face-to-face appointments. So that's the face-to-face is the comparison, and then the outcome is looking at the fail to attends, basically.
Great. This is another example of where the PICO is important to develop the research question. But when we get to the literature searching, you probably wouldn't want to put your comparator in search terms, because then it will bring up all the papers on face-to-face.
Okay, great. Yeah. Thank you.
But having the comparator there and in the research question is very, very important.
Super. Thank you very much.
Great.
Susan here.
Hi, Susan.
I'm thinking I've got this right, but I'll just run it by you. So I'm looking at the population regarding, it's not a research question as such, it's for a subject I'm doing at the moment, but it's I'm looking at the population being the HR perspective on the resource-based view of business, and the intervention becoming more people focused, like building up the people skills in the workplace, the comparison becoming more technologically focused, so involvement of AI, and the outcome being job loss due to the efficiency of AI. And my question that I've sort of formulated is, how do we avoid the trap of going backwards towards technology intervention at the risk of losing people skills? So when the Industrial Revolution initially started, machines were replacing a lot of the jobs that people could do. And I'm kind of looking at that to the nth degree, where I saw some footage the other day of the world's first fully automated McDonald's restaurant. So there is not one single human being in the entire store. And yet from what I see, one of the things that you can do if you work at McDonald's is you can end up having your own store, that you go to McDonald's University and you learn how to be the manager and basically, you know, run $1 million business. And you might only be very, very young, but I'm kind of seeing a conflict there where you're training up your people, and yet the fourth industrial revolution being, you know, kind of in some ways integrating AI with human resources. But I think it could, if left unchecked, could go so far that we're going to have a whole litany of people leaving schools with, you know, basic low level coping, low level prowess in their studies. So then they think, well, I'll just go and get a job at Macca's.
Sure.
But then they can get replaced, same as Woolworths, Coles, by machinery that can do the work. And so I work, one of the jobs I've got at the moment is in retail. And I was even thinking about this the other day. You know, we could end up having a lot of our retail stores going 100% online, having no physical stores, and everything automated. And then how many, you know, I don't know, thousands, maybe millions of people will lose their jobs if that becomes, oh, well, it's so cost effective because we don't have to train people up and then make allowances for all of their human issues. We just get a robot to do the lot. So that sort of concerns me. So, yeah, thank you.
And I think this is an example of another one of the research questions that's more your project research question. I doubt there would be very much papers out there on this because of how new it is. So you need to be thinking about, well, what do I really want from my literature search? What do I need to know about AI, people-focused versus technology-focused, and job loss? And what could already be in the literature that I need to find out to support my argument to answer that research question in my project? So really good, Susan. Right, so the next step that we take, and we'll go through this a little bit quicker than we did with the PICO, because that's the most important part, PICO, the research question. So the next step is to develop synonyms or related terms for your PICO keywords. So this is just a little table of a different research PICO. This one's for patients undergoing abdominal surgery. Whether chewing gum compared to not chewing gum affects their post-operative ileus. So the search terms would be abdominal surgery, because in our PICO, we really want our P-I-C and O to be single word keywords that we can search in a database search term, and then we turn them into synonyms. So abdominal surgery could also be surgery, post-operative, recovery. Chewing gum can be chewing gum or gum. And this is another of the comparisons that won't be used in the literature search itself. And then post-operative ileus or paralytic ileus or ileus. So for my example, I will show you. Actually, I might get you to help me come up with some synonyms for my PICO. So if my population is plant-based diet followers, what are some other words, single keywords that we could use for plant-based diet?
Vegan.
Vegan, number one. Next one. What else?
And vegetarian.
Vegetarian. Anything else you'd put in there for a synonym for plant-based diet? Maybe throw pescatarian in there as well, just so we don't lose all of our people who don't eat fish. Maybe flexitarian could be used. So trying to think of all the synonyms. At this stage of my literature search, I 100% always go and sit down with a librarian every time, because the librarians will always come up with synonyms you haven't thought of, or keywords that you could be using in your PICO and in your search term. They are an amazing resource, and particularly the librarians at Southern Cross University have done so many amazing things for scoping reviews, systematic reviews, and literature reviews that I've written in the past. So at this stage, always pause, write your PICO, write your synonyms, and then go and book an appointment with the librarians to go through your synonyms and your keywords. All right, so intervention is high diet quality. What other keywords could we use for high diet quality?
Healthy diet.
Healthy diet, good.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Clean diet.
Clean diet, good. What else?
Quality diet.
Yeah, good. What else?
Healthy lifestyle.
Yeah. We could also use some synonyms for actual diets that have been known to be high diet quality in the literature, like the Mediterranean dietary pattern. What about our comparator, low diet quality? What else, what synonyms or keywords could we use for that?
Unhealthy.
Unhealthy, perfect. What else? It's a tricky one.
Poor, a poor diet.
Poor diet, yep.
Processed diet.
Very good.
What was that?
Processed diet, that's what
Processed. Yes, over processed.
ultra processed is the correct terminology, ultra processed. And again, like the Mediterranean dietary pattern, if you know the literature a little bit, you'll know that the most common unhealthy dietary pattern is the Western dietary pattern. So we would probably put that in as well. What about our outcome for depression? What other keywords could we use here for depression?
Low mood.
Good, low mood. What else?
Sad.
Yeah.
Lack
What
of
else?
lack of motivation.
I said black hole.
Black hole. Yes.
Black hole.
We could use depressive. We could use, and I'll get to truncation and Boolean operators later about how to do some shortcuts where you don't have to write all of the different depressive disorder, depressive symptoms, major depressive, all those things. That
Black dog.
Yes. All right. There are synonyms. So later on, when we get to the end of the steps, I'll get you to practice the synonyms on your PICO as well. But start having to think about what you could do. The next stage in our systematic search is identifying relevant databases. Now, I'm a big fan of EBSCO, particularly in the Southern Cross library, because they have a very handy way of searching all the EBSCO databases all at once, which makes life a lot easier than doing 4 different searches in 4 different databases. Keeping in mind though, EBSCO all have the same papers in them. So it is wise not to just use EBSCO, but to also use maybe Scopus as well, or Web of Science potentially. Now that's all health and psychology related. So the best databases for health and psychology are PubMed, PsycInfo, CINAHL, Medline, Scopus. But if you're in education, Academic Search Premier is really good. Education Research Complete, ERIC, Teacher Reference Center, again, all EBSCO, because that's what I use. In business, we've got Business Source Premier, we've got ProQuest and Emerald, and in law, we've got ICLR, Lexis, and Westlaw. Again, the Southern Cross University Library database website has some really good resources on how to choose the databases specific to your field. So definitely use those. And I will be running an example in a second. So you don't have, so you can see it in practice as well. Then we use truncation and Boolean operators, which are ands and ors and quotation marks and asterisks to help you, so you don't have to write every single keyword and synonym, and these are kind of little shortcuts. So diet with an asterisk behind it will include all words such as diets, dietary, and dieting. So it will pre-fill after the asterisk all possibilities for diet. So then you don't have to write all of those out. Again, the same, depress with an asterisk at the S will include all words such as depression, depressive, depressed, depress. You can also use an asterisk in the middle of a word, and this is really handy for us UK English writers, because if you want to find a paper that has American English spelling, it will not include them. So putting an asterisk in the middle of a word will include all the different spellings of, say, colour. So it will add the U or it will remove the U. In my plant-based diet, I always run my plant-based with an asterisk between plant and based, in case there's papers that have used plant-based as 2 words or plant-based with a hyphen in the middle. So that will pick up both of those types of spellings. If there is more than one word in your keywords, so they're 2 words and you want them to be included together, you put quotation marks around them. So plant-based is a good example of that. So it doesn't look at plant and then based, all the papers with plant and based. It will include all papers with plant-based as 1 word. You can see this down the bottom underneath that line where it says meta-analysis. So I've got quotation marks around it to include it as 1 word, but I've also put an asterisk in between meta and analysis, just in case some papers use a space and some papers use a hyphen. And I also put it at the end so it picks up analysis with an IS and analysis with an ES, so the plural form of analysis. Yeah. The Boolean operators, so that's truncation, that helps you with your search. Boolean operators are your big ORs and your big ANDs. So if you are looking for a paper that has, and we're looking for diet quality in plant-based populations in depression, we want to have 1 line with all of our keywords and our synonyms in 1 line. So we could use dietary pattern with the quotations around, so it includes it as 1 word, or med asterisk diet, that will give you med diet, that'll give you Mediterranean diet, or Western diet, or healthy diet, or unhealthy diet. And as you can see here, I have included my intervention and my comparator in the 1 line, but you could switch them into 2 lines if you want. It does not matter, and I'll show you that in a sec. Then we put the outcome in. So we want all papers with dietary pattern or Mediterranean diet or Western diet or healthy diet or unhealthy diet. And it also must include the words depress or anhedonia, which is another word for a very old school word for depression, and or melancholy, another very old school word for depression. So the papers must include either dietary pattern or med diet or Western diet or healthy diet, and must include also depression as well. The next step is our inclusion exclusion criteria. And again, I'm going to run through this. I'm going to give a practical example in a second, so don't worry if you're not keeping up or writing it all down, because we are actually going to do this. So having your inclusion exclusion criteria very firm in your mind is very, very important, because when you go to including the papers in your literature, in your report, it's very important that they meet the inclusion exclusion criteria that you have from the beginning. So some common things are population or age range. So with vegan and vegetarian diets, it's quite foolish to expect children to be on those diets for reasons, and we won't get into the moral and ethical reasons behind that in the literature, but we would restrict our population age range for this data search from 18 up usually, and because children don't get to make their own choices of whether or not they are vegan or vegetarian when they have omnivore parents specifically. Recency of literature is a very important one as well. So if you are, especially with the 2 AI papers, you would really want to go into the literature, find out when artificial intelligence started to be used, and then look at papers from that date onwards. So you would be limiting your search to those dates, but you always must have a very strong justification if you are going to do that. If you are looking for the whole of time, you can do that as well, keeping in mind that you may get quite a lot of papers. But if you do have a justification for looking for a certain time, then you would limit your search to that, to those years. You can also limit your search to human or animal studies. I always click off animal studies. I'm not interested in like animal studies that have been done on putting animals on plant-based diet and testing their depression symptoms. I'm only interested in human epidemiological studies. So I would exclude animals. Geographical location is another one. A study I'm doing at the moment is looking at Hindu and Indian populations who have been vegetarian for life. So if I was looking for a search to justify my reasonings to support my argument to do that paper, I would use India maybe as a geographical location exclusion. English language is an interesting one. A lot of people do exclude all papers that aren't in English language. I don't tend to do that, just in case there are papers of interest in my field in another language that I might be able to get interpreted. There's like AI can do that now. So type of study, for my umbrella review that I'm currently doing, I am only looking at systematic reviews and meta-analysis on my topic. So I would use that as an exclusion criteria. Or if you're just looking at randomized control trials, you could put that in. Or if you're just looking at qualitative research on that topic, you can put that in as an exclusion. And then the final exclusion is like peer-reviewed scholarly articles of great literature, and that's a decision you definitely need to make before you do your literature search. Are you going to include government reports, things on the internet that aren't peer-reviewed or evidence-based, or are you going to exclude them from your search? The ADHD guidelines literature, PICO that was discussed before, Carol, you would not exclude grey literature in your search. You would be very interested in what's in the grey literature. Any questions about what we've covered there before we go into an example where I'll show you how I do this search? No, okay. What we might do then is we might have, it's nearly past, so we've been going for an hour. We might have a 5-minute break, let you go get a refreshment, stretch your legs a little bit, and then we'll come back and in 5 minutes, so at 10:35 or 9:35, depending on where you live, we'll come back and I will run this search term using the inclusion exclusion criteria.
Could we possibly get a copy of these slides? Is that right?
Yes, Alison, if she's here, she'll be able to give them to you. If not, email me. My email will be on the final slide and I'll send them to you. Not a problem.
Yeah, prime. That the whole truncation mint. I think that's where a lot of good information goes missing.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think that's where I waste a lot of my time researching anyway. So anyway.
And which is why this whole system is important, because you need to have like your PICO and then your synonyms, and then you use the truncation on your synonyms, then you use the Boolean operator. So it's like very important to have like each thing done correctly before you move on to the next part.
Yeah, yep. I think I work very backwards with how I do a lot of my assignments today, because I've got the practical experience relevant to what I'm studying. I'll sit there and I'll do a full assignment without having citations, and then where I've stated things as fact, I'll use what I've written and then go and find some article that represents what I've written.
That's actually a really good way of making sure that you don't plagiarize someone else's words though.
Yeah.
Which is like the problem that I have is I like do this system and then I like get really excited and read all the literature and then I find it really hard to write it in my own words.
How do I wordsmith this? Yeah.
Yeah.
You just sit there in Microsoft Word, highlight the word, go down, opposite click, synonym, pick a different word.
Yeah. And now we have to be careful of all this AI stuff because
Oh,
you
the
can
chat,
just
yeah.
type in paraphrase this paragraph for me.
Yeah, it's interesting. I did just for my own benefit a little bit of a test in that space using this new chat GPT setup, and I've gone through and specifically built out some project charter documentations and things like that, and then I've gone to chat GPT and I'm like, oh, okay, let's see how this would work. And I think if you can ask it the right questions and then modify your questions as you go along to alight the right response, what I produced to what it produced, although it was different, the base content was exactly the same.
Yeah,
exactly the same.
I think that it's just a bit new at the moment and it does get a lot of stuff wrong. So if it's all well and good if you're an academic and you know kind of you have an education about the topic behind you, but if you're a student who doesn't know a topic and gets all excited, pumps it into chat GPT, everything that comes out is wrong.
Yep.
But you don't know it's wrong, so you put it into your assessment and you fail. Whereas we kind of know the background, right? And we're like,
yeah,
that's wrong. And then you argue with ChatGPT and then end up with something that's kind of okay. But again, it's got a ways to go, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Look, I think if you're relying on ChatGPT to pass a bachelor's or postgrad, you deserve to fail. Let's face it.
I agree 100%. Yeah. Yes. Now I think
Megan, if you send me your PowerPoints, I could send them out to everyone. If you're happy to do that.
Perfect. I can do that.
That'd be prime, because I think I'd print off that truncation page specifically and just slap it above the one of the 4 monitors I've got on my desk.
Yeah. When I was doing my PhD, I had like A4 printed out pages of stuff everywhere, all over my bedroom, because obviously it was during COVID. So just everywhere, and people walk in and be like, are you a serial killer? Like, why?
Only in my spare time.
There's all the strings like attaching all the different bits. Yeah, it's funny. I'm just trying to remember things. It's fine.
That's funny, talking about ChatGPT. Did anybody see, or Nick Cave actually has a blog called The Red Right Hand, where his devoted fans chat to him. And one of them said they got, I think his name was Dave, he got ChatGPT to write a song in the style of Nick Cave. And he sent it to Nick Cave. And Nick Cave said, sorry, Dave, this is shit.
That's good. I'm glad. Yeah. Although I did the other day, I asked it to, what's a good activity for describing the sampling distribution of the mean, which is a really kind of tricky concept you have to teach first-year psychology students. And it came up with the best idea, like with a candy jar, like get a candy jar full of like 4 different colored candies, count how many is of each color, mix them all up, and then give each student a little bag of candies. Obviously, they will all have different types, and then find out what their mean is for each color. And I'm like, yes, that's exactly how you explain sampling distribution of the mean. So it's got some, if you know how to use it, it's got some good ideas, but It's just finding it off the internet. So it'll be on the internet somewhere. You get
That's right. It can only take what's already out there.
It's just better at searching the internet than you are.
Yeah. So, but
That's how I think.
it's dependent on, you know, what's on the internet for sure.
Yeah, 100%. All right, we might get going, and we are going to, I'm just going to look at my slides. Yeah, perfect. This is exactly where I want to be up to. Cool. All right, so this is the very wonderful Southern Cross University Library webpage. I use this all the time. Even though I'm at Bond, Southern Cross's is better. I am an adjunct senior lecturer at Southern Cross University, so I still have all my access to things, so that's good. But Southern Cross's is actually a little better, so I use it. Let me find, I'm just going to get up my search terms. Oh, how am I going to do this? I need this to be on that screen, and I need that to be on that screen. Can I do that? It's not going to let me. That's fun. All right, I think I can do this with my brain. I probably don't need the slide. All right, so the first thing that we do when we get to the Southern Cross University library page, usually we just type in, what was that? Something fun. Usually we just type in our keywords here and we search for literature, or we put it into Google Scholar and we search. Usually come up with some good stuff. We're probably missing out on some things. A better way of searching is through the databases. Yay. Now, as I said before, I tend to use EBSCO because it's the most user-friendly and it lets me search like 4 or 5 databases at once. So I like that. So I click on the E and bring up the EBSCO databases. Keep in mind, you don't have to put all this into your memory. There's going to be a recording so you can like play it back, fast forward it, reverse it. You can do all that and follow along with me with your own keywords and literature search. So I'll go nice and slow. So we've clicked on E. It's brought up all of the databases starting with E. We click on EBSCO. It asks you for a login. Lucky I still have one. And then we wait. This will bring up all the different databases inside EBSCO. Not all of them are relevant to psychology or medicine. I'm starting to think maybe I should be looking at more nutrition-based ones now that I'm 5 years into my nutrition psychiatry research. I don't know, maybe there are some. I've just used medicine and psychology ones, but there are ones like Academic Search Premier, which is education. You've got the Allied Health Medicine database, which is kind of cool. CINAHL is one of my favorites, so I click on it. There's computer and applied sciences. I won't use those. There's another education one, engineering, another education one. These are good. But there's a tourism one. I like Medline. And psychology and behavioral sciences collection, psych info. As I said before, the website actually does have a little tutorial or resources telling you what's the best for your field. So definitely have a look at that. I think that's it. Yeah, 4. Let's continue. And then we have our advanced search fields. In the little field drop-down box, which I always forget to click, so I do them first now, I always choose abstract. So I'm looking for these keywords in the abstract of papers. I don't use full text, although the librarians sometimes will advise to use that if you don't have a lot of papers. And sometimes it's unwise just to limit it to the abstract. I just tend to do that. So I will put abstract in for my 3 bars, and my 3 bars I'm going to make it 4 because I'm going to do the comparator as well. So they relate to each of the elements of my PICO: population, intervention, comparator, outcome. So for my population, what have I got? I've got vegans, vegetarians, plant-based, right? So plant-based, we want to keep it as one word, so we put the quotation marks around it. I want to make sure that it provides me with plant-based as with a space or plant-based with a hyphen. But can you see here, EBSCO has given me some quick tips on what could also be included in my synonyms. So I will probably click on all those. Now, it's taken away this, but that's all right. I will put that back in. And from the looks here, I was using capitals, but you probably don't need to. What else did we decide we were going to include in there?
Pescatarian.
Yeah, we'll throw them in. Or our flexies. Okay, cool. What was our intervention?
The high quality diet.
Again, just in case. And then I would put a little asterisk at the back because we could have high quality diet, high quality diets, high quality dietary patterns. I always put my ors in as capitals, but it doesn't seem to matter up the top there. So personal preference. I might even put in diet quality. Did we say anything else there? Dietary patterns. Maybe even just putting in diet with an asterisk.
We also talked about Mediterranean diet and clean diet.
Ah, that's very good. Quotation marks around that. And then what was our comparator?
Unhealthy.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing that we didn't have at the top.
Are these terms case sensitive or not really?
Yeah, well, it doesn't seem so.
Poor diet.
Good. Ooh.
Ultra
And then-
processed. You had ultra processed too.
Yeah, we could put that in. All right. And then what was our outcome?
Depressed.
And that's going to pick up depression, depressive disorder, depressive symptoms, major depressive disorder, as you can see there. Or I think we have anhedonia or melancholy.
Ollie.
Cool. Good. Now, some of my exclusion criteria. So I kind of want scholarly or peer-reviewed journals. I don't really want anything in the grey literature about that. I'm not going to put any dates, even though I know that there's not very many papers kind of before 2008.
Sorry, Megan, I can't remember the phrase grey literature, what that referred to again.
Grey literature just means anything that has been published outside of the peer-reviewed literature, so it's not evidence-based. So they're usually like government reports or reports in education, Things that are, or marketing reports, things that are on the internet that haven't been peer reviewed. Sometimes they're very handy depending on what topic. So you would decide whether or not you would include those. Not so much for this topic, but for other topics like the ADHD guidelines one, that would be very, very important. You would miss out on a lot if you didn't. We could, I don't think we have very much inclusion exclusion criteria for this. Oh, we do want human studies, maybe in English. And there's a lot of different options that you can do. You can limit by age group if you're only looking at children or elderly. If you're looking at people who are pregnant only, if you're looking for people from a certain country, if you want to exclude by gender, if you want to exclude by type of paper, all of those types of things you can do inside these exclusion criteria. But we won't unless we're going to search and we have hundreds of thousands of papers.
Sorry, Megan, can I ask a question?
Yep.
What happens if we get this far and we realise that the our research question, there's not enough literature on it? What do we do? I'm a bit scared because what I want.
Very good. Well,
Yeah.
what do you do?
Yeah.
Well, we've only got 4 here so far. So that's kind of happened, right? So you've just broadened your search terms out. So in this example, we've only got 4 papers. I know there's a lot more and only one of them's really relevant, or not at all. None of them are on plant-based diet. So something's happened. So we would remove some of, or we would, I think it's these that are wrong. I think it's our diet quality measures that are messing us up. So maybe taking them down a little bit. Making them more, the terms more broad, maybe. Just looking at depression. I don't know why I put quotation marks around that. That's only one word. Now let's see what happens. There we go. We've got 141 papers. So this is a very key area and why you should always go sit with your librarians. Because when you get to this stage, there's a little bit of playing around with the keywords to get exactly what you want. Sometimes you'll have too many, sometimes you'll have not enough synonyms. Sometimes the synonyms will exclude things. What have we got here? The first paper, vegetarian diet is inversely associated with prevalence of depression in middle older age South Asians in the United States. That's very particular, a very tight population. That's quite good, but that does fit. But as you'll see here, as we go down, some of the papers don't fit at all. So this doesn't have nutrient deficiency profiles in depression, a latent class analysis study of American populations, has nothing to do with plant-based diet. So at this stage, this is where you will exclude by title and abstract, and I will teach you how to do that. So we are up to this slide. Sorting and storing the literature. So now we've got this amount of literature. Sometimes there's thousands as well. I have done literature searches where you've got 2,000 that you have to trawl through the titles and abstracts. Not always great. It's good when you end up with enough, but not too many. So sorting and storing literature, which I'll show you in a sec. We eliminate irrelevant literature by title first. Then we read the abstracts and we eliminate anything that's not relevant to our inclusion exclusion criteria and our PICO. I find it really handy sorting and storing the literature in EndNote rather than inside the databases themselves. And I'll show you how to do that in a second. And then I export the abstracts of the ones that are relevant into Excel. And we sort them again there. I'll show you that in a sec. And then we end up with the full text of all of the relevant papers. So I will show you how I do that. So in this circumstance, we've got 141 papers. We're not going to really look at them inside the library database. We'll go to page options because there's 141. We want to look at 50 papers per page. Make sure you always click apply or it won't work. And it will show you 50. Now we've got 141 across those 4 databases so far. What we want to do is we want to store them in our folder. And all you do is click on the share button, add to folder. Results 1 to 50, add to folder, scroll down to the bottom, click on next, and the next 50 papers will come up, and you'll get a little notification telling you that they've removed duplicates, which means any papers that were duplicated across the 4 databases are the same. So we've really only ended up with 91 papers that were relevant. There was about 50 in there that were in 2 or 3 of the databases. So it's limited that down. So we click share again, click on the results folder, and that has put all 91 papers inside a folder for us. We then want to go to the folder view. Click on it, and it will give you all of the 91 papers in that folder view or in that folder. At this stage, I like to export them. Click the export button. And don't worry, you can go back to the recording and fast forward and reverse this while you're doing it yourself. And I like to export it to 2 different places. I like to export it to EndNote, which is a software program for your citations, so that you've got all your citations from your search in one spot. And then I also like to export it to Excel or CSV. So once you click on this, it'll send all the citations to your citation software. And once you click on this, it'll create an Excel file. So I'll just do that to show you how I manage the Excel file.
Sorry, Megan, just a question. So all this information for the EndNote and the Excel spreadsheet, is this going to be within the library computer package, or is it something that we would be able to download to our files onto our laptop?
Yeah. So this, once you are in this export page, this will export to your computer. So as you can see here, I've exported it onto my computer files. Can you see that file explorer? Oops. So I would just open it. I saved it to my computer, and now I'm going to open the Excel file, and it looks scary, but I get rid of a lot of information. So we want the title of the article and the author and the journal, but we probably don't need a lot of this information. So I would just remove all irrelevant columns for that I don't need. All this information will be in your citations, so don't worry about getting rid of it. This Excel file is mainly to help you decide by abstract and title which papers are relevant to your search. So I also sometimes keep the keywords because that might help as well. And so I just keep the article title, the author, the journal, the keywords, and then I make the abstract box really big, click on this link here, wrap all the text, and align everything. So now you've got one line for each of your 91 papers. This article title is Determinants of the Age at Natural Menopause. It doesn't seem like it has anything to do with plant-based diet. So I create a little column, yes and no, and I'll just put a no in any of the papers that aren't relevant and a yes into the ones that are. Indicators of anxiety and depression in subjects with different kinds of diet, vegetarians and omnivores. That sounds pretty relevant. I'm going to keep that one. And I go through my 91 titles and abstracts. If we get to a paper, say this one, and I'm not really sure if that's diet quality, it is about vegetarians and omnivores, and it is about depression, but does it talk about healthy and unhealthy diet? I'm not sure. So I'm going to go into the abstract and just read the abstract and make sure it is relevant to my topic. So the following study, Puerto Rico, investigated different kinds of diet, depression, 80 subjects, 25 to 70, 2 groups, vegetarian, non-vegetarian, depending on diet consumption. Basic findings in the psychological tests. There were significant differences in depression between groups. So it doesn't really measure diet quality. It only tells you whether or not the vegetarians were more depressed than the vegans and the omnivores. So it doesn't really say, is this dependent on whether they had a low or a high diet quality? So I would then go and click that as a no by abstract. So it was a yes by title, but it became a no by abstract. And I would go through each of the papers and do that for each one. And then for all the yeses, I would keep them for a full text read, and I would read them by full text. Any questions up to here?
Yes, I've got a question. It's Nadine. So what about with the end note? Do you keep all of them 91? So, you know, with the no's, do you get rid of them out of your end note, or what do you do there?
Question. And it really depends on if you are using your literature systematic search to write a systematic review or a scoping review, or if you're just doing it for a literature review. If it's just for a literature review for the background of your introduction for a paper or for a thesis, I would get rid of the non-relevant ones. But for a systematic review, and you'll see, can you see my endnote?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, good. Okay. So you'll see here, where am I doing the umbrella review? Plant-based diet. Okay. I've got umbrella review here. And these are all of, this was a really amazing search. It only came up with like 14 papers and they were all relevant. Well, not all of them, but 9 of them were relevant. So you see here, I've got umbrella review, these are all of the papers that I got from my search. And then full text, they're all the ones that I kept. So I just make little folders in EndNote for each stage, but that's only for like a proper systematic review or umbrella review.
So what's the difference with the umbrella review?
That's a good question. An umbrella review is just a systematic review of all the systematic reviews and meta-analysis on one topic. So there were already 9 systematic reviews on vegan, vegetarian diet and depression, and I decided that I wanted to find out what the overall evidence is across those systematic reviews. It's not looking good for vegans and vegetarians.
So really you're just identifying the consensus across the academic literature.
Yeah, which each of the systematic reviews has done, but they're saying different things. So we just want to collate it all, do a meta-analysis, look at the averages of the odds ratios inside the systematic reviews.
So through the process of reading your full text, if through that process you identify, you know, what I like to call an absolute pearl of wisdom, could you copy and then add another column in your Excel document and paste it next to, so you know, okay, this particular statement I got from this particular peer-reviewed journal, and I want to use it specifically within, you know, my assignment, my review, or whatever.
Yep. So to do that, I would recommend having like a notes column next to each paper and writing your notes in there. In saying all this, there is now software that people use, because that's very manual. That's how I've always done it. Covidence is a new software program that does that all for you in a much easier way. SEU has a free access to Covenants, I believe. Is that right, Jill? Is that correct? I know Jill, one of the librarians, is in here somewhere. Is she still here? Maybe not. If it's not,
she logged off. She had to go for a meeting, I think.
oh, okay. Okay.
But I think you're right, though. It is
Free at
available.
SEU. I'm only starting to use this. It basically does that system that I showed you itself. But I would recommend practicing in Excel generally first before you start using the system. Okay, the next thing that we do in
I was just thinking after Jacob spoke, you could be reading one of those reviews and you could actually color highlight something that really took your attention, so it would stand out from the page, and then you could then add your references later, Jacob.
Yeah, one of the things that I do sometimes is I will click on, like if I've got 2,000 papers and I have to exclude by title and abstract, I will go into Control H and I will replace, say, plant-based small with a capitalized version of that. What is it? Oh, I didn't like it. Okay, what about plant-based with a, well, let's do one of the words that's actually going to be in there. Let's use vegan instead and do vegan in capitals. Replace all, 83 placements. And then when you go through and you're reading your papers, anytime the word vegan comes up, it will be in capitals, and it makes it a lot easier to see your keywords inside the abstracts. Anyway, that's just a small thing that I do. Any questions before we move on to what do you do once you've got your full texts?
Just a question. How many articles would you suggest to read for an honours level research project?
Oh, that's a good question. I had 200 papers in my honours thesis, but that was overall. That wasn't just in the literature review. I would highly recommend doing this search and typing in systematic review. So say you're in your databases. Let's go back a few steps. If you don't know if there's anything in your field or you're brand new to the topic, the first thing that I will do is say diet, depression, and then I'd write in this box systematic review, and that will bring up any systematic reviews or meta-analyses on your topic. And the most recent one will have the best evidence in it. We'll see, this is giving you 542 results. We don't want that. But see here, association between vegetarian and vegan diets and depression, a systematic review. It was written in 2022, in March of 2022. This is probably the most recent paper on my topic. If I know nothing about what is going on in the field, read this paper and it will do all the heavy lifting for you. It's also got the very first table in any systematic review is always this data extraction table that I'm about to teach you to do. But when you find a systematic review on your topic, it will do all that for you as well. So that's the first port of call if you don't know if there's anything at all in your field. So once we have our full text, we then do our data extraction table. Now, I've been teaching my students this from first year undergrad because this is something that I wish that I had learned when I was earlier in my career. I learned how to do this kind of in my second or third year of my PhD, and it have saved me so much time and so much effort during my degrees, particularly in honours. So once you've got your papers by full text, and I can send you this as well, Alison. I'll send you a Word document of my data extraction table example that I give my students. You write down author, year, country of the paper. The first one's me. The aim of the research was to examine the association between plant-based diet quality and depressive symptoms. The type of study was cross-sectional. The participants, there was 165 vegans and 54 vegetarians aged 18 to 44 with a mean age of 31.2. The research design was an anonymous online survey. This is what we found about plant-based diets: high diet quality, reduced symptoms; low diet quality, increased symptoms. And here's the limitation or the gap in the literature. So there was a lack of causality because obviously it's cross-sectional. Data was collected during COVID, which could have increased the depressive symptoms rather than the actual diet quality or the type of diet that the people were on. Now, the reason that I say this is because when you go to write your paper, when you have every single paper in your topic in this data extraction table, you can compare them to each other. And it's obvious that a cross-sectional study of 165 vegans and 54 vegetarians is not as good quality as a longitudinal study of 14,000 women, or a qualitative study of the 50 staff and students from Southern Cross. That's also another one of my papers. So once you put all of your papers in, you extract the key data from each paper. When you go to write your literature review or write into your research report, it's a lot easier because all the information's in that spot. And then when you go to write the very last rationale for why you're doing your research project in the last paragraph of your literature review, you can use the limitations and future research column and see, okay, across all the papers, what's the gap in the literature that we could fill? And it's already there for you. You don't have to be like, where's that paper that said this? Where's that other paper that said that? And they're all over your desk. So data extraction table, really, really important. So we use the data extraction table to write our systematic literature or narrative review. Inside your literature review, when we are writing, it's really important to introduce the type of study, what country it was in, the number and type of participants that was in the study, and what the findings were for each of the studies. If you're going to introduce someone else's research, if you include those 4 key things, it takes the onus off your perception of what was in that paper, and the reader can make their own decision about the quality of the paper. And I'll show you an example in a sec. And of course, when you're writing your discussion, you can use that final column to write your strengths and limitations as well of the field. So here is an example of what I mean about how you can use the data extraction table to write your literature review. So, and this is how I write all my literature reviews now. A recent cross-sectional survey, so that's telling you immediately what type of quality the paper is, because it's only cross-sectional. We can't talk about causality. Conducted by Lee et al. 2021 on 165 vegans and 54 vegetarians. So that's kind of telling us a little bit about the sample size and the quality of the paper again. In Australian adults, that's important because vegans and vegetarians in Australia might have a very different lifestyle to, say, vegans and vegetarians in India who have been vegetarian for life. Examined the association between plant-based diet and depressive symptoms. They found that a high-quality plant-based diet was associated with decreased symptoms, and a low-quality plant-based diet was associated with increased symptoms. Then you have your joining sentence or your joining words. This was similar to another Australian randomized control trial of 56 adults. So almost immediately you can see the 2 papers are from the same country, but the randomized control trial, which is the gold standard of research in this type of area, is going to be a better quality than, say, the cross-sectional survey, even though it's got less people in it. It assessed whether changing from a low to a high-quality diet caused depressive symptoms to decrease. So that was Jacka et al. In her SMILES trial. In this intervention study, 36% of those in the high-quality diet group were no longer classified to have depressive symptoms at the end of the 12-week trial, compared to only 8%. So always including those 4 key things when you are introducing or discussing someone else's research. Type of study, the country it was done in, the number and type of participants, and what the findings found. And this will always help you write a much better literature review to help your reader make their own decisions about the research that you are showing them. Here's another one. However, so there again, that linking word, a longitudinal study examining diet, depression, food security, and diet quality found that the overall diet quality of the diet of 14,000 American women over the past 25 years did not meet recommended national guidelines for whole grains, dairy, fiber, etc. This finding was contradicted by qualitative interviews of 10 women in Iran conducted by Sargent that found women reported eating the required amounts of fruits and vegetables. So here you can see that the reader would be like, okay, so this study, this longitudinal study has been done over 25 years with 14,000 women compared to this qualitative interview study of 10 women in Iran. And they'll be able to be like, well, they're 2 very different papers, and they would likely not believe, but find more evidence in the first study than the second, even though they both say different things, rather than you saying, a study in America showed that women did not meet the recommended national guidelines, but this was contradicted by another study in Iran that found that they did. Can you see how they're 2 very different ways of expressing the same thing, and how the reader has much more information from writing it this way? Good. Now it's your turn. I keep dropping things, sorry. Now we are going to try the process yourself. So we've already developed our research question and our PICO. We might start by identifying synonyms and related terms. I'll let you do that for about 5 minutes-ish, and then we can move on to the next section. I'm just going to dash away for a quick second, and I will be back to answer any questions.
Okay.
Do we have any questions quickly before I dash away?
I do.
Yes. Okay.
Sorry, Megan. The data extraction table, is that manually done by ourselves by reading the full text? Did I miss something? Yeah.
Yeah. So you fill it out. I don't know if Covidence does that for you. I don't think so. But yeah, you just manually fill out each column.
Yeah.
And then you can use it to refer back when you are writing your review.
Perfect. Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? Okay, I'll be back in about 5 minutes, and we will discuss your synonyms. And then if you can get on the library and see if you can replicate the database search using databases from your field, and I'll come and help you.
Alison, I have to say this is so good. Thank you.
Oh, great. I'm really pleased.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I wish I'd had it last year.
Yeah, right.
It's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Oh, that's great feedback. Thanks, Zoe. Yes. Well, we did do one with Megan maybe a year or a year and a half ago, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. During COVID, I think. Yeah. But
I must have missed out on that because I only started last year. So
yeah, right. Well, I think what I'll do is once I get Megan's PowerPoints and the recording, everyone that's registered for this workshop, I'll email you where to find the recording. And so we have a YouTube channel, and once you go in there, you can explore the other recordings of other workshops too that may interest you. That's kind of useful. And the fact that she's willing to share her PowerPoints is really good too.
It is good.
Yeah.
Alison, in regards to that YouTube channel, would you be able to send the link, email the link out?
Yep.
or some information how to access that, please?
Yep. Did I
That would
send
be
it
really good.
earlier?
Uh,
I've just
not
got
sure.
YouTube right at the top this morning. I've just got youtube.com.
All right. Okay, so I shall look for
If you
a
scroll
email
up
that
the
you sent out
text-
today.
If you
All right, I
scroll
will
up
do
the
that.
text
Thank you.
chat box there, you could copy and paste that YouTube address and have a look at what else is in there. There's some real, I mean, there's the other ones that are fantastic too, about like using in vivo, and I think Megan's last one on literature review. Yeah. So if you scroll up, you can see I posted a few things in the chat box about 10:30 this morning. So 10:45 even, there's a, it's not a link. You might actually have to copy and paste it into your browser, the youtube.com/@SU postgrads.
Just really quickly, Alison, I've got the qualitative research workshop in 2 weeks. It's on the 23rd of March.
Yes.
Oh, that's good. Because when you said next week, I was like,
oh, my apologies.
No, because I'm gonna be at the International Society for Nutritional Psychiatry Research Conference next week.
Excellent.
Yeah, very exciting.
I just want to double check
Mhm.
while you're here.
Okay.
Well, methods 23rd, yes.
Okay, good.
Sorry about that.
I got very scared. I was like,
oh yeah, I bet. Yeah, no, we've got to, yeah. So enjoy your conference. That sounds amazing.
Thanks. How's everybody going with their synonyms? Any questions, any queries, having any trouble? It's a pretty easy step, but like I said, always go and sit with your librarian once you've completed that step, because they will have amazing advice on things that you may not have thought of. And every single time, even now, I've done so many of these before, like since I go to the librarians and they still come up with something and I'm like, oh yeah, that was a great piece of advice. So always go sit with them. They'll help you out.
And the librarians are just really dying to help students out.
They really are. And they're super friendly.
Particularly with postgraduates, all postgraduate students can book one-on-one consultations with the libraries that are librarians, yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Has anyone attempted to go into the databases and open up the search, the advanced search?
I have actually used EBSCO host previously, but not today.
Okay. Another really cool thing that you can do is, if you've done this search before, say you do the search, it's come up with 542, you can go over to share, and down the bottom here is a box that says use permalink. If you copy and paste that into a Word doc, and then 2 months later, 3 weeks later, 6 months later, you're like, I want to redo that search, you can just put the permalink, copy and paste the permalink into your browser, and it'll take you back to that exact search.
Excellent.
Yeah, I've used that a lot of times. Another thing is, if you go back, say, a year later and you want to do that search again, but you want to limit it to the last year of papers, because you've already done up to, say, March of 2021, and you want everything from March 2021. So all the papers until now. What are we? Are we in March?
Yeah.
So March 2020. So say you've been out of your data set for 2 years. you can do the exact same data search, but for any papers that are new, and you just click from when you did the last search, and then we've got another 177 in the last 2 years. Then you go through those and just see what's updated. So you don't have to go through the whole search again.
Are you able to go back to the slide where you had the synonyms, please? Thank you. That's what I want. Where is it?
I'll send you that PowerPoint and the data extraction table now, Alison.
Thanks. I think people are keen to have a copy, so thanks for your generosity there, Megan.
No problem.
Except you're sharing your screen still, but oh, there we go.
I just moved it to my other screen. Ah, it might not let me do it while it's open, actually, now that I think about it. Oh, it did work. Okay.
When do you think you'll be sending these out, please, Alice?
Well, if Megan's going to send me PowerPoint and stuff, I'll send those straight away. The recording will take a few hours, so it might not be till tomorrow morning. It's you know, it's 2 hours of video that's got to download to my computer, and then I've got to upload it. So yeah, just bear with me on that one.
No, that's fine. I was sort of thinking, you know, a week.
Oh no, I try to get them out as soon as possible, really. Yeah.
That'd be great. It's Nadine here. I did my search and I got 1,277. So I think I need to just refine that a bit better. I think
Do a bit of a cull.
Yes. Mine was on the ADHD guidelines. So I think I'll definitely talk to the librarian.
Yeah, good idea. Really good idea. Absolutely. I guess it's an advantage being a postgraduate, because I'm not sure that librarians are that generous with their time with undergraduates, but with postgrads, they'll do a consultation with you.
Yeah. How are we going? Any questions about developing the synonyms or putting the search terms into the database?
It's Nadine here again. Could you just show me where that permalink was? Or...
Yeah. So when we're in the databases,
yeah,
let's go through them again. So on this screen,
Yeah.
in share, it's just there.
Oh, okay, so I'll go across to share and then down.
Yeah.
Mhm. Thank you.
No problems.
Okay, we've only got like we're down to our sort of last 5 minutes or so. I guess any last questions or queries for Megan? Megan, it's interesting you say that the SCU library is a bit more better equipped or whatever than Bond, like having access to
Just for
both
some
is-
reason, their EBSCO databases, you have to search them separately for some reason. We're not
Yeah,
sure
right.
why.
Yeah, right.
They don't allow you to do the 4 at once.
Interesting, because you can compare. I'm sure all uni libraries are different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, how are people going? Any more questions for Megan?
No, I've just done a quick search. So
Yeah.
I'm in ProQuest.
Good.
And I've put in, because my supervisor just wants me to find dissertations and theses at the moment and find the gap there. So I've got 16 that have come up, and I just put in beach nest bird or beach bird. Because there's basically 5, 6 if you call the little terns beach nesting birds in Australia, so it kind of limits it. I suppose the other thing I will go back and do is then just search for each of the type under its name.
Well, if we don't have any more questions, just field any last questions that you have.
Yeah, I guess for me there was so much information. I sort of could get stuck just on the data extraction table, just on its own for a whole subject. How to create one. It was just like, oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's where the recording will come in handy, where you can go back and just watch that bit again and use the information that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I think I need lots of practice.
Yeah, and that's where it comes in handy. Like once you practice it a couple of times, it becomes like easier. Yeah, but just putting hands-on, practical, trying to do it yourself, it makes it a lot more user-friendly, a bit easier when you try it that way, rather than listening to someone else do it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
thanks.
great. Thank you, Megan.
Yeah, thank you very much, Megan, for
you.
sharing your expertise and really good examples. And thanks everyone for attending. So we'll wrap it up now and I'll stop recording. Yeah, keep an eye on your emails from me. I'll send out some things too.
Thank
All
you.
right, thanks everyone.
Thank you.